Chapter 21, Aftermath. What do you mean I was holding back? I fought with everything I had. That may be so, but had you already evolved again or invented a new way to attack, things would have been different. You have been taking it easy all this time. There is no age limitation holding you back, you need only gather enough magic and fulfill a few conditions, then you can instantly evolve. Damn it. I knew the system was right. I could have done more. No, I should have done more. I was naive to think that if I held back and played nice, the humans would leave me my peace and quiet. Also, check your rune of recording right after the evening prayer. Be aware, this may be harmful to your peace of mind, winky face. Rune of recording, after the evening prayer, found it. Play it. You wanted to see me, Eric? No, he didn't, I did. Lady Narita, head of the Mountain Bull clan, I am Cert, the heir of the Muspel clan. And why did you call me here? I don't see a reason for the heir of one of the great clans to come here. Surely you jest. The existence of this tree, you call him Eldar, would be of great value to any clan. Especially if he didn't keep his abilities for his own benefits. What are you talking about? Eldar has never kept anything for his own benefits. Eric interjected. Did he really? He grows those ingots within seconds, once a month, but he did the same with the apples every 3 days. Are you certain he couldn't grow more? It doesn't matter whether you believe Eric or not. I do, and I will obtain these benefits for my clan. I'm just here to ask you to stay out of this. If you do as I say, my clan will surely reward you. We might even help you deal with the verdant serpents, something you tree could never do. Can you truly destroy the verdant serpent clan? If you and your clan stay out of this. You have my word. Recording end. No. She betrayed me? Betrayal isn't really fitting. How about abandoned you for benefits? I could feel something in the deepest parts of my soul break. A strong trust one had always had for humanity. And something was born to fill that empty void. Hatred, wrath, resentment, call it whatever you want. What are the conditions for me to evolve again? Possession of iron, silver, and gold. Aldi. I was taken aback by the sound of my own voice. It didn't sound wise and deep like before. I had always tried to make my voice sound like that, but now that I spoke without trying to do so, my voice sounded strange. It was androgynous, neither high nor low, and carried a monotony that made it seem somewhat ethereal. While he probably didn't recognize my voice, Aldi still appeared before me within minutes. Based on his pale face and slightly trembling hands, I assumed he was very afraid. After all, the noble had been brought by him. Despite fearing the worst, Aldi still put on a professional smile and stood there as though he was awaiting judgment. Fear not, little merchant, I know you held no part in the tragedy that occurred. I called you for a request. I wish to acquire both gold and silver ore, as big as a man's head. Can you find that for me? Lord Eldar, I surely can bring you those things, but the cost. How many iron ingots would that be equivalent to? Well, for me to turn a profit I'd need around 100 iron ingots for the silver. Gold's worth is roughly 20 times that of silver, so that would be 2,000 ingots. Then I'll buy the silver one for now. Step back. Aldi was already accustomed to this and retreated quickly. Iron ingots began to drop and form a pile. There, 100 ingots. How long will it take for you to bring me the silver? A round trip should take about 5 days if I make haste. Please do that then. Aldi quickly left the village with the iron ingots. Chapter 22, At Your Own Risk. Aldi had left for Utgard at noon. Since then a few hours had passed and it was now time for the evening prayer. It was obvious that things couldn't continue as they had before the incident. The incident had been too well prepared and all the people had been in their houses. They must have known but chose to keep silent and hide. It wasn't a true betrayal but clearly showed their priorities. Should I retract the bloodlust barrier? Just at that moment, Nerita left the town hall and slowly walked towards me. She gave a smile that was so forced it made me want to throw up. Except, I had neither the ability nor anything to throw up. Hey, I'm glad you didn't get hurt. Well, I never thought the noble would suddenly attack you. I'm sorry I couldn't come immediately, but I had to relieve myself. So you were relieving yourself in the town hall for multiple hours? Nerita, you are horrible at lying. You don't need to pretend. I know about your meeting with the noble. But can you blame me? I just wanted to have revenge for my father and all the others who were killed. Have I ever rejected the idea of helping you settle your grudge? I have to say, I greatly misjudged you. Are you even still Eldar? Your voice changed and you act totally different. You changed. I didn't change, your actions forced me to change, it was your distrust that made me what I am now. We won't leave. You can't take our home from us. You are free to stay at your own risk. So you'll just let the beasts kill us? Eldar? Answer me. Don't just ignore me. Damn it. A loud bang resounded throughout the town. Nerita, driven by her anger, had transformed into her beast form and punched me. I didn't take any damage. My density was far beyond what her strength could successfully make a dent in. Instead, her fist was now bleeding and looked quite gruesome. Her hand was unable to withstand the counterforce her own punch produced. She promptly retreated, holding her hand, and disappeared into the town hall from where she had come. Will you retract the bloodlust barrier? No. There is no need to bother with them. I should focus on getting stronger instead. Good answer. Any suggestions on how to get stronger? Gather magic for the next evolution as a large amount is needed, gain proficiency in magic and find ways to attack with it, find additional ways to find, collect strong blueprints of beasts for future use, collect beasts' corpses for future use. Looks like I have plenty of work ahead of me. I heaved a mental sigh and began to seriously consider my options. Gathering magic was the easiest for me, so I would first concentrate on that. When I had been placing my subordinate trees, I had already positioned them in a formation used in my former world. It was used to make magic slightly gravitate towards all inside. However, its effect was rather poor and only useful in long-term plans due to its simplicity. Since I wanted to get strong as fast as possible, this formation alone wasn't going to cut it. I lay all my focus on my subordinate trees. Under my meticulous control, countless rows of tiny runes appeared on the trees, wrapping around them like snakes. The ground shook as beneath it my roots first decayed and then regrew, forming patterns below ground. Even these new roots were covered in runes. The result was near instantaneous. My subordinate trees began to glow in a pale blue light as the magic circle I just created was fully activated. Magic came rushing towards me, the epicenter of the circle. The magic density in my surroundings increased to the point where it even became somewhat visible to the naked eye. Another thing about such a high density of magic was that it was harmful to beings that couldn't absorb it. Like, for example, the humans in town. The town's proximity to me would no doubt result in adverse effects for the inhabitants. Before the incident, I hadn't been willing to use this method to attract magic, but since my conversation with Nerita, that had changed. It was their choice to leave or stay, and I wouldn't use the beasts to purposely antagonize. However, I would no longer hold back for their sake either. Chapter 23, My Territory. This was the second time Nerita came to me. She had only been gone for 3 hours, and now she was already back. Her hand was bandaged, and she looked even more furious than when she had left. What did you do? I built a magic circle, nothing more. You want to tell me that people start spitting blood because you built a magic circle? You did something to them. You monster. They start spitting blood because they are weak. My magic circle attracts magic in great quantity, and the resulting density is harmful to them. Then stop. Why? It is your choice to stay here. If, by chance, you don't like it, then leave. So you're just going to drive us away? I am tired of this discussion, Nerita. You are free to stay, but I won't hold back to protect you anymore. Just move the weakest away from me, and they should feel better. Fine. I had the feeling she was about to say something insulting again, but she just left. Soon after, the townspeople commenced moving away from me. They seemed to know rather well how far the protective barrier reached and settled as close to it as possible. Having dealt with that, I resumed my own plans. System, remind me of my affinities. You shouldn't rely on these things too much. As a tree with human consciousness, you have no true affinities. The things you heard about were mere standards regarding your proficiency in an element. So I can freely use every element? Indeed. This was indeed fortunate for my plans. I had mastered nearly every known element to a basic degree in my previous life. This included magic for manipulating metals. Now, of the 3 metals I currently had, iron was the strongest. However, there was something I believed could be more useful and potentially dangerous. I had copper, a metal that is highly conductive. I must admit I haven't a clue what exactly that means, but I was taught the base principle behind it at the academy back in my student days. Electricity, which is apparently the same as lightning, travels from its source to the ground. On its way, it passes through objects, and the higher their conductivity is, the more of it goes through. And most importantly, this electricity is harmful to the human body, and if strong enough, it can be lethal. Just like lightning. In conclusion, if I could use the copper to touch my enemy and send lightning along this copper connection, they would die. A great plan, wasn't it? The only difficulty would be that I would need great control over the copper to establish a connection. The best way to establish a stable connection would be to form multiple strings of copper and use them to bind the opponent. This method would not only allow me to shock them, but also keep them restrained if they wanted to run. I tried to see if I was capable to do such a feat in my current condition, but was sorely disappointed. My control over the copper was lacking, to say the least. I could at most change its shape. So I spent the next 6 days practice my control over copper and absorbing an abundant amount of magic. My control had improved by leaps and bounds, and I could already manipulate the copper into strings to skewer things. The motion was completely one-directional though, and there was still some progress to be made. However, after these 6 days, Aldi had returned. And with an unexpected surprise nonetheless. You brought both silver and gold ore? Pleasantly surprised, aren't you? I decided to make a small investment and bring the gold along as well. A small investment? I began to doubt the mental image I had of this man. How could some middle-aged merchant see gold as a small investment? Also, how the hell did he stay safe with that kind of cargo and no bodyguards? He must be hiding his strength. But now was not the time to ponder over such matters. I speedily absorbed the silver ore and began deduction. After 10 minutes, the first silver ingot grew on one of my branches. It had taken a full minute to grow and confirmed one of my fears. I couldn't grow things instantaneously anymore. It took me 20 minutes to grow the ingots required to trade for the gold ore. After obtaining it, Aldi left in a hurry, and I resumed my deductions for the gold ore. Gold seemed even more complicated than silver. 3 hours were consumed to get its structure, and I had to wait 10 minutes for an ingot to grow. Thankfully, growing was a passive process and I could grow multiple ingots simultaneously. I would only need a few more days of absorbing magic to achieve all the conditions for my next evolution. Chapter 24, Magical Beast Tree. Evolution. It was time for me to take the next step. Utgard would not like my new attitude nor the death of that noble, and if they came to make trouble, I wanted to be as strong and prepared as possible. The next evolution would allow me to grow living beings. For that, a major increase in deduction power was a necessity. The amount of magic I had gathered this time was many times more than what was needed for my last evolution, and this time all the magic would be used to upgrade my core. This increase in deduction power would also bring me another advantage. According to the system, deduction power was also relevant to fine-tuning one's control over magic. I guessed that I had around 1 week left until Utgard's actions would reach me. I had to hurry and become stronger. I dropped the last of my newly grown ingots into my stash and sealed it. Since I would be unable to grow more ingots, I had dug a hole at my base and stored some ingots there. My current inventory consisted of 500 iron ingots, 200 silver ones, and 50 gold ingots. Now you must ask yourself, where did the copper and tin go? Well, I reassimilated the tin because I couldn't find any immediate use for it, and the copper was safely hidden in my tree crown. From there, I could use it as a means of attack without anyone suspecting it. I was all set. I moved my full focus onto the stored magic and began to compress it into my core. Since this process was done solely through compression, it was unnoticeable from the outside. As the compression increased, so did the size of my core. After all my magic was used up, my core had reached the size of a melon, and I could feel an increase in deduction power. However, this wasn't enough. I needed more. To that end, I began to once again apply compression. Not to magic though, that had been used up, but to the core itself. It wasn't just the size of the core that mattered, but also its density. As they say, quality over quantity. Thus, under my careful actions, the core began shrinking until it was only the size of a grain of rice. Its color had also changed, from a pale, light blue to a pure, crystalline white. It really did somewhat look like a grain of rice. Maybe calling it a small pearl was more favorable. I now felt like I was overflowing with deduction power. My evolution was nearly complete. The last step was to deduce the blueprint of a living being. I chose to first try with a squirrel. It was a small normal animal and shouldn't be too complex. Boy, was I wrong. 3 days later I was finally done. A simple small critter had cost me 3 whole days. Your deduction speed is above average. Oh really, what's the average duration then? A week. Good thing I had above average deduction then. Turns out deduction wasn't the only thing that took long. Growing the squirrel took another day. On the bright side, I was now officially a magical beast tree. Yay me! The finished squirrel was now hanging from one of my branches. Its outline and auburn fur were vaguely discernible through the semi-transparent membrane in the shape of an egg. Why does it look like an egg? No reason in particular. No reason then. But really, it didn't seem any less strange. Time to hatch it. I dropped the egg. It landed on the ground in a splash of gelatinous liquid, and from it, an adult squirrel emerged. It immediately climbed me. The gelatin in the meantime seemed to just evaporate. Stop running around on me like crazy. It feels itchy and really pisses me off. The squirrel stopped. Could it understand me? Creatures you have created will see you as a father figure, and as long as you are stronger, they will follow your orders. That sounds like fun. Let's deduce the Tempest Wolf next. Chances that I would finish in time for my possible confrontation with Utgard were slim, but I could still try. 3 days later Aldi arrived with the usual messenger, and I wasn't even halfway done with my deduction. Chapter 25, Don't Push Your Luck. The messenger, arrogant as usual, first went to accept taxes from the villagers. It was less than usual due to my little confrontation with the noble, but the messenger didn't seem too concerned. My ingots had always been the major source of income generated by this town, and the harvest were just some additional crumbs in comparison. Just that he found this source of income wasn't there. Lord Eldar, where is the monthly tax? I have evolved and can't produce any ingots for the time being. Furthermore, I have no intention to pay this nonsensical tax anymore. On the contrary, I think you should pay me for providing a safe area. Lord Eldar. This is treason to the Sky Kingdom. You must pay a tax for the protection you receive. Say that again. Protection? My child was murdered by one of you humans, and you even had the gall to send someone to rescue that bastard. Tell me, what are you protecting me from? How dare you slander the kingdom? Oh, I dare to do much more, winky face. The messenger was about to open his mouth to spout some more nonsense, but my copper string wire arrived in a blink and penetrated his right thigh. He collapsed with a hollow whimper. I retracted my copper string. Electrocution didn't seem necessary. Aldi walked forward and picked up the messenger's body with an ease that once again surprised me. You realize that they aren't going to let this slide. He stated this like a fact he knew would come true for certain. I knew he was trying to warn me, but since things had progressed to this point, what should I do? Should I run away? Real funny. Aldi left with the messenger. This time Utgard's answer didn't let me wait for long. 7 days later, I had barely finished the blueprint for the Tempest Wolf. They arrived. Led by a blonde, 2-meter colossus of a man, the small group entered the town. There were just 3 of them, but my magic perception was telling me that the 2 following the colossus were not to be underestimated. Both old men felt similar in power to the noble with his stone. However, I could tell that this was not some artifact giving them power, it was their own strength. And one of them felt familiar. Yes, the powerful presence that day must have been him. Better be careful. The trio directly approached me. Greetings, Lord Eldar. I am Volsing, the commander currently stationed in Utgard, and these are my subordinates. I am here to address the issue of you attacking an official messenger and refusing to pay tax. I disagree, Lord Volsing. I have rectified a bastard without manners and refused to let myself be robbed by some greedy humans. I don't see any need for discussion. Calling us greedy robbers is a little over the top. We merely ask for the tax every citizen should pay. And what in Goddess' name makes me a citizen of a human kingdom? The land we stand on is my territory, as it would be overrun by beasts if I wasn't here. The only thing you could offer in exchange for this tax is protection, and judging by the fact that you let my child die horribly, I think calling you greedy robbers is quite adequate. It was a tree, surely you can grow another one. It was a sapling with a soul, and it had developed a consciousness within hours. For reference, it took me 3 years to do that. And no, I cannot just regrow it. In fact, I will need to evolve once again if I want another descendant, and I already know that none of my future descendants will measure up to my first one. How would you feel if I just came into your kingdom, killed the best heirs to the throne, and told you to just put a waste on the throne? Oh yeah, I should also demand money from you for protecting you from your peaceful lives. Please calm yourself. I'm sorry for your loss, but there is no reason to act like this. You're right. We should just proceed to fight to the death.